And so as we meet ourselves and others with kindness, alcohol-free living requires that deep well of compassion, right? Especially for yourself. I read recently, and this is so powerful, and I think it was in the work of Kristen Neff, about self-compassion, is that self-compassion equals self-control. How beautiful is that? Because that shows us that beating ourselves up or admonishing ourselves is not how we grow in this alcohol-free life and in this life after alcohol. And so true emotional maturity means treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a friend. And with others, compassion allows us to understand that not everyone is going to get our choice to live alcohol-free. Welcome to the Sober Edge podcast, inspiration for alcohol-free living. I'm your host, Terry Patterson, functional nutritionist and This Naked Mind senior coach. The Sober Edge is a place to explore the infinite possibilities on the other side of drinking. In a culture soaked in booze, discover the wonder and joy of taking a different path. Meet real people living lives of purpose and passion. Learn the truth behind the alcohol myths and get ready to be motivated, inspired, and astounded by what is possible with the Sober Edge. Well, hey everyone, it's Terry back with another edition of the Sober Edge podcast. And I have a solo episode for you today that's all about the ways that we level up when it comes to our emotions on this sober journey. So this was inspired by an article I saw around the 7 emotional pillars. And I wanted to really break them down and see how they relate to growing in our alcohol-free journey and life. Because alcohol-free living isn't just about removing alcohol, as we know. It's about creating a life where we don't need it. And that life needs to have our emotional bandwidth enhanced, stretched, explored, all of the things that help us level up. So, as we take a look at the way to create all of our sober feelings, you're not just saying no to alcohol, you actually have this opportunity to say yes to a more present, empowered, and fulfilling way of life. So let's get into these pillars of emotions when it comes to our alcohol-free living. So the first one is around the idea of self-awareness. And you've heard me say it before, and we know this. We cannot change and grow if we don't know where we're starting from. And for me, and probably many of you, when I was drinking and over drinking, the last thing I had the bandwidth for was self-awareness. I was just going on autopilot. I was repeating old patterns. And so being able to see yourself clearly is what is necessary to build that emotional maturity. And, the opposite of self-awareness is just where we're in that autopilot, unconscious reactions and impulsiveness. And this is where we get stuck in the drinking and over drinking because we're repeating the same patterns. And so when it comes to seeing ourselves clearly in this alcohol-free life, this self-awareness is all about recognizing why you drank in the first place and really digging into what was I trying to shift? Because I think we all realize that when we are drinking, we're trying to change our state. And usually that's an emotional state. So this is how this all connects. And, when we pause and get curious, we open the possibility of real change. And so self-awareness helps us make those intentional choices and recognize where we need support, as well as connecting us all the time back to our core values. The second part of this sober feelings is resilience. And so having the resilience not to run away from heavy emotions is how we can expand our perspective. And really sitting with the discomfort instead of numbing it is a big part of resilience when it comes to this alcohol-free journey. And as we know, Alcohol often acts as that quick escape hatch from tough emotions, but resilience means we get to stay in it. And it's about knowing that hard moments don't last forever. And it's also about understanding, if we go back to the first pillar, understanding where our bandwidth is. Are we at a place where we can sit in this difficult emotion? Are we still learning how to do that? And that's okay, right? And so we don't grow these resilient muscles overnight. But as we gain more clarity and more bandwidth in this journey, we can start to challenge ourselves with sitting in the discomfort instead of immediately looking for that escape hatch. Now, for most of us, our escape hatch was alcohol. But we take alcohol away, we might still see those patterns of looking to numb the discomfort. And so each time you ride out a craving or navigate an awkward social situation or process emotions without reaching for a drink or some other numbing behavior, you're proving to yourself just how strong you really are. And so we've got to build up those resilient muscles bit by bit. The third part of these sober feelings really comes down to compassion. And compassion is that beautiful place of meeting yourself and others with kindness. So, the type of compassion where you're able to see more of the picture than just your own perspective is this beautiful place of emotional growth. And so it is a quality that is at the root of healing these difficulties between people. And so as we meet ourselves and others with kindness, alcohol-free living requires that deep well of compassion, right? Especially for yourself. I read recently, and this is so powerful, and I think it was in the work of Kristen Neff, about self-compassion, is that self-compassion equals self-control. How beautiful is that? Because that shows us that beating ourselves up or admonishing ourselves is not how we grow in this alcohol free life and in this life after alcohol. And so true emotional maturity means treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a friend. And with others, compassion allows us to understand that not everyone is going to get our choice to live alcohol free. And that's okay. Their perspective doesn't have to change your path. And I think that's one of the most important things. And that's a place of compassion for them and ourselves. So, number four is this mental agility. So, mental agility is fascinating because our brain loves certainty. And this is where black and white thinking can really come into play. And so, part of mental agility is teaching yourself to not get stuck in a particular viewpoint or emotion. And that takes, that emotional maturity. And so it's really beautiful to consider, what is my viewpoint and how can I expand this mental agility and curiosity and asking questions and taking a step back and, giving up your natural tendency to want to prove yourself right. That's another thing that our brain does. Part of the way it creates certainty is it just goes back to what we think we already know. And part of mental agility when it comes to alcohol free living is letting go of old stories. So, for so long, we're told that alcohol is essential for fun, relaxation, and connection. But with mental agility, we can start to challenge those beliefs. And mental agility is all about staying open to those new ways of thinking and realizing that joy and confidence and deep connection in relationships don't come from a bottle. And so when challenges arise, mental agility is what helps us stay grounded, adapt, and remind ourselves why this choice matters to me. Yeah, so remember, when challenges arise, this mental agility is what helps us stay true to that core value that we are growing and creating. And so the next is feeling without fueling. Isn't that cool? And this is really learning to sit with emotions. And so, when we have heavy emotions, it can be hard to learn how to not let them take control over our actions. So when I was producing my Tea with Terry thoughts, emotion, actions videos, I would talk a lot about emotions. So we never have an action without first having a thought and an emotion. And so this is where when we see ourselves getting spun out with our emotions, when we see that perhaps we are making them bigger or heavier than they need to be, we're adding fuel to the fire. That's where we can think about, well, what is my thought? And so this is really beautiful because emotional maturity is that we're learning and allowing ourselves to feel, really feel, without letting those feelings dictate impulsive actions. Because isn't that what we did when we were drinking and over drinking? So instead of numbing sadness or stress or boredom with alcohol, we actually have this ability to find new ways to process and move through these heavier emotions. And so all the tools that we have in place, whether it's taking a walk, using your breath, journaling, reaching out to a friend, whatever it is, we can honor our emotions, but they don't have to create more fuel. And let's see, the energy to grow. So, isn't it cool to think about emotional maturity is really recognizing that we have the energy to grow and that we can give ourselves permission to make mistakes, but turn those mistakes into new skills and developing new ways of showing up in the world and having our own back. And so, part of this journey with alcohol freedom is embracing progress over perfection. Progress over perfection is so key. I was taught once years ago that we have to let go of the outcome and just do the action. And so rather than expecting a certain outcome, we can instead put in the work up front. And then, there is going to be a result. And so alcohol free living, like everything in life, isn't about perfection, it's about growth. And isn't that freeing? And so emotional maturity really means recognizing that setbacks don't define us, they teach us. And you've heard this said many different ways. And I've done entire podcasts on, growing the muscle that allows us to fail forward. And when we get better at this, I was going to say master, but I don't know if we ever master it. But as we get more experience with this, and as we embrace this idea of curiosity and growth, we will see that we don't have to let these setbacks define who we are. And so growth takes patience, it takes self reflection, and it takes the willingness to let go of the old habits and the old patterns that no longer serve us. I broke up with alcohol because it no longer served me. And the more you lean into this journey, that's where we feel lighter and more aligned because we really are recognizing that life is one big learning experiment. It's like a playground for our mind. We're learning, a playground for our emotions. We're learning. We're running around trying to figure it out as we go. And there's a lot of energy with that. And when we embrace that energy can be forward focused, growth focused, there we go. There we go. And so this is something we can do with intention and with thoughtfulness and with practice and accountability without harsh judgment or without shame, right? So this is such an important part of emotional maturity and learning all the sober feelings. And I know for me this was a hard one because first of all it was hard to take accountability because I was often disappointing myself. And so I didn't accountability felt hard. I had to take a hard look at myself. And with that often came harsh judgment. And so part of stepping into an alcohol-free lifestyle means that we get to take ownership of our choices, past, present, and future. And so we don't have to beat ourselves up. We just have to recognize, yep, that was who I was then. That was the way I behaved. And I'm doing it different now. And this beautiful balance is about responsibility without self shaming. When you hold yourself accountable for your actions, maybe you've noticed this. When you hold yourself accountable for your actions, you're also practicing self forgiveness. And this is the balance that helps us move toward confidence, knowing that we're becoming a better person. We're becoming a more evolved version of ourselves. And so I absolutely love this because all of these ways that we think about our emotions, and sometimes, we get so caught up in feeling overwhelmed with our emotions. And I think this is a really powerful framework. So, self awareness, resilience, sitting with that discomfort instead of numbing it, meeting yourself and others with that compassionate kindness, letting go of old stories and developing mental agility. Remember, we can rewrite the story we've been telling ourselves. And then learning to sit with our emotions without adding fuel to the feelings. And that beautiful embracing progress over perfection, allowing ourselves to fail forward, and then create this beautiful accountability by owning your choices. So I hope that was inspiring to you today. I got really excited when I saw this framework and really wanted to think about how it intersects with living a more vibrant, alcohol-free life. And so I am on this very same journey as you to grow in the ways of emotional maturity, to recognize where I still need so much work. And so I'm reaching out to you with compassionate kindness, as I hope you will offer to your fellow alcohol free travelers and to me and yourself as well. Well, so fun hanging out with you. I'm kind of missing the every week, but I'll see you in 2 weeks, the next edition of the Sober Edge podcast. I want to thank you for tuning in to the Sober Edge podcast. This is a place for important conversations and a safe place to question everything you thought you knew about drinking. If you're looking for your sober edge, I want to invite you to connect with me at thesobernutritionist.com, where you can grab my free resource, Becoming More, a guide to loving your sober life. And I would be so grateful if you enjoyed this podcast, if you would leave a rating and review, as it will help more people find their sober edge.